When is good enough good enough? Well, if you're from the Brett Veach good old-fashioned school of lover boys, name that band, you know the correct answer is never. And the Kansas City Chiefs are still making roster moves on the precipice of the playoffs. Montrell Washington was cut from the practice squad. No reason to cut Montrell Washington from the practice squad. Perfectly serviceable in the practice squad role. However, Brett Veach has official business to be businessed, and we will get to why I think this move was made in a moment. And there's a popular / obvious narrative here, but I'm not sure that that's really the case. And I'll get into why I'm not sure that's really the case. But the obvious question here is, who is Blake Lynch? The Kansas City Chiefs assigned linebacker Blake Lynch to the practice squad. He is a 27-year-old linebacker who went undrafted out of Baylor in 2020. In his time in the NFL, he has made many stops along the way. In 2020, he was a member of the Minnesotaers, the Vikings there. He appeared in 4 games with 1 start. In 2021, he appeared in 16 games with 1 start, had an interception that season and 2 sacks, as well as 35 total tackles and a tackle for loss and a quarterback hit. By far, his best season as a pro. Now, linebacker is a tricky position in the NFL. Linebacker, once the absolute be-all, end-all of defensive positions, say as late as the 90s, the early 2000s, along with the running back on offense. The way the NFL moved, right, you had the decline of the running back, the decline of the middle linebacker. No longer were these two the heralds of their team. You had the quarterback, who is the creme de la creme of everything, right? But then you had two, because the quarterback is the distributor of the football and not the person who's going to be running in all the touchdowns. There was a great profligation of other positions that became more important. All of a sudden, your quarterback is the main player on offense, so the defensive end position became a premier position. So the wide receiver became a premier position because the quarterback has to be able to get the ball out of their hands quickly. So then cornerbacks became a premier position. Now, always, if you had a stalwart at one of these positions, it was a great thing, but now you have to have those positions or you will not be winning football games. And you can see in the NFL this year, especially, and I think part of this is that the trade deadline getting moved is making the losers in the NFL sell basically bargain bin costs, and the winners in the NFL saying, hey, we might as well buy. These are pennies on the dollar deals. So by the time you get to the end of the season, teams that had a quarterback now have a quarterback and a wide receiver, now have a quarterback and a wide receiver and a defensive end. Anyway, the linebacker position, the reason I got into that whole spiel, running back is much easier to see with running backs on the offense that the whole quote-unquote dime a dozen thing really is the truth. And so a lot of guys kind of just get buried on the depth chart. There's a lot of good running backs, so everyone has a good running back on their practice squad. There's a lot of good linebackers, so everyone has a good linebacker on their practice squad. Now, I'm not telling you that Blake Lynch is going to be the next great linebacker, but I think it's possible that though Blake Lynch has played a mere 295 defensive snaps in his entire NFL career, that he is better than normally you would find a 27-year-old player that has 295 career snaps. So I think that there could be meat on the bone with the Blake Lynch signing, not simply bringing in someone to fill the practice squad. The Kansas City Chiefs, we'll get to in a moment, don't need that. But in that 2021 season, having played 218 snaps and racking up an interception, 2 sacks, and 35 tackles, as well as a tackle for loss and a quarterback hit. That's a lot of activity for a guy who was just in his second year out of college being a UDFA. Imagine, because the obvious comparison is going to come up, if last season Jack Cochran had that stat line. We would have been because that was his second season after being an undrafted free agent. We would have been pretty excited about that type of stat line for Jack Cochran. In 2023, he only appeared in 7 games after appearing in 16. He started 0. This was for the Los Angeles Chargers. And in 2024, he appeared in 1 game for the Los Angeles Chargers as well, giving him a career total of 51 tackles, 2 sacks, and an interception. Now, when we look at the snap counts, this is another reason that Jack Cochran is going to come up. As a rookie, he played 77 defensive snaps. His sophomore season in the NFL, 218. And then he played 0 defensive snaps in 2023 or 2024 in those 7 and 1 appearances by Blake Lynch for the Chargers. However, on the special teams end of things, he played 61 snaps as a rookie, 342 snaps his sophomore season in the NFL. That is a special teams ace level type stat line. Then he had 131 snaps for the Chargers in 2023 and 20 in 2024. Kind of, if we're going to make a career comparison, we could throw out Cole Christensen. Cole Christensen having been a special teams guy for the Chargers. Now, here is actually where he was. So we have him in NFL games, and then we have where he has been. He was with the Vikings in 2020 and 2021. He was with the Cardinals in 2022 and 2023. However, he was on their special team or their practice squad, Then with the Chargers in 2023, he was with the Seahawks, the Chargers, and the Raiders this season. And now he is a Kansas City Chief. So you guys know, one of my favorite things to do when introducing players like this, I'm a numbers guy. I'm a meat and potatoes guy when it comes to this sort of thing. Harkens back to my days trying to be an NFL scout, printing off player profiles in the computer lab of my middle school. But when we get into the nitty-gritty of who it is that Blake Lynch is, the measurables we have are this. That's his entire pro day. 6'2" and 1/8 inches, 225 pounds. Blake Lynch showed up at the pro day, kissed some hands, shook some babies, and went home. We have no more measurables for him. Now, on to the analysis part of things here. The logical fit for this signing, if you were to say, why did the Chiefs do this, is as a replacement for Jack Cochran on the special teams. We'll get into a little bit why I think that may or may not be the case, but that would be the direct correlation if you were to say, well, there was a cause for this signing. There was a signing. The cause was Jack Cochran going on IR. The signing was Blake Lynch. I'm not sure that's the case. The Kansas City Chiefs have Cam Jones. They like Cam Jones. Cam Jones has played defense. The Kansas City Chiefs have Swayze Bozeman. They like Swayze Bozeman, and he was on the field just last week. The Kansas City Chiefs further have Cole Christensen. They love Cole Christensen on special teams. Now, here's the one question I don't know. Cam Jones is on the active roster. Swayze Bozeman and Cole Christensen. You only have X amount of times you can be promoted to the active roster during the regular season before you are default signed to the roster, or they have to cut you, risk you passing through waivers, and then re-sign you to the practice squad. I don't know, but I think either Swayze Bozeman or Cam Christensen is coming up on that. So it's possible that, yes, This was a signing in order to replace from the practice squad Jack Cochran on the active roster with a linebacker that they don't have to then risk losing by having to cut him and pass him through waivers. However, I continue to believe that these late season moves that we're seeing here, you're talking Siaki Ika, the massive defensive tackle. You're talking Tyquan Thornton, the very, very fast wide receiver. You're talking Robert Tonyan, what looks to be a versatile type tight end. I continue to believe that these are moves by Brett Veach looking out for next season. Sure, if they can get on the field and you can get help from them this year, rock on. However, you get them in the practice facility, you figure out who they actually are, and then next year, when you're looking at one of these, so Peyton Hendershot, I believe, is on a 1-year deal. Do you need to replace him with Robert Tonyan? McCole Hardman signed a 1-year deal. Several of those wide receivers are going to be free agents at the end of this season. Does Tyquan Thornton sort of work in there? Derek Nottie, 1-year deal for the 19th season in a row. Derek Nottie is going to retire on a 1-year deal eventually. Does Siaki Ika take one of those run-stuffing roles for the Kansas City Chiefs? You don't have to bring them to camp if not. You have already figured some of that out. Now, we've talked a lot on the channel about the compounding detriments of so many long seasons. So the Kansas City Chiefs have terrible draft position because they win so many games, they go to the playoffs, they go deep in the playoffs, and a lot of times they end up winning the Super Bowl. So you pick 30th, 31st, 32nd. That compounds in the draft, and it compounds over seasons. Then there's the waiver wire. Somebody cuts a player that has to pass through waivers. You once again get the last shot if you win the Super Bowl. And this is not to mention the fact that these Kansas City Chiefs, anyone who's been here long enough, has played 6 seasons of football in just 5 years because of all of the postseason games that they've played. But this one thing of signing these players to the practice squad, this is one of the compounding benefits of playing so much football. The Kansas City Chiefs pretend there's 3 spots on that practice squad that they get to play with a little bit. You're signing players here heading into the final week of the regular season. Then you're going to get the bye week. Then you're going to get at least the divisional round of the playoffs. Say you were very interested in Blake Lynch, and I'm not picking on him, I'm just saying this because this is the video we're making. Say you were very interested in Blake Lynch and you were figuring on signing him to a futures reserves. You were figuring on bringing him into training camp. You've got an extra month now before you have to play football again. You're still going to be practicing. Well, go ahead and cut Montrell Washington. Probably he'll be there when the futures reserves come around. Probably he will want to play for the Kansas City Chiefs if you really like him that much. Now, and you already know who he is, now you get to bring in Blake Lynch and figure him out. Maybe what you thought you saw, and by the way, I don't think it's an accident that he entered the league in 2019. Look at when Brett Veach was making draft picks. You get to figure out if what you thought you saw on film with Blake Lynch was real before this season is even out. So pretend it's not. Now you don't have to waste your time come the next training camp. He's just not there. So this is a compounding benefit. Now, one thing that I didn't put on the page here, but is interesting, this is a switch up for these Kansas City Chiefs. What I mean by that is Brett Veach loves to bring in UDFA linebackers, but he brings them in year 1 or year 2. Blake Lynch is 27 years old. So a little bit of a switch up, which that's part of the thing that makes me believe maybe Brett Veach really likes this player and thinks he can contribute, because this is not his general MO. This guy is, however, similar to Jack Cochran in his build and his hybrid type athleticism. One of the things that was interesting with Jack Cochran coming out of college, he really looked like a safety on film. He really did. And when you look at Blake Lynch on film, he looks like an athlete. Like the typical, we are signing a high school player at the ATH position. He doesn't really look like a linebacker. He looks tall and lanky. If you were to take a picture of him on the field without perspective, you would think he was a defensive end. When you watch him move, you would think he is a safety. So he's kind of a strange tweener there, and that's kind of similar to Jack Cochran. Also, watching him play reminds me a little bit of Elijah Lee, who had a cup of coffee in Kansas City a couple seasons ago. So I think that this is a play on linebacker depth for next season. He is a long strider, deceptively long strider. He does not look like he's moving on the field, but he's gaining pace on someone. He has coverage skills, kind of an interesting type of coverage skills. He's not locking anyone down, but he moves very well. He has seemingly long stride speed, and he is good off of the edge. What I mean by that is not good on the blitz, not that I notice, maybe he is, but he's good off the edge of the offensive line. If you have a defensive end face up with the offensive tackle, this guy's going to make some havoc. So anyway, guys, that's what I have for this video. The Kansas City Chiefs sign another reserve linebacker. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Kansas City Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And I hope to have you back for the next one.